Welcome to Code Your English, the home to learn and grow fast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Code Your English, the channel where we improve not only our English, but also our confidence, mindset, and personal growth. I'm so happy you're here today. Whether you're commuting, taking a walk, doing chores, or simply relaxing, thank you for spending these next few minutes with me. Today's episode is for anyone who's ever felt stuck, uncertain, or ready for a positive change. I truly believe the message we're about to explore can make a difference, no matter where you are in life. If you're new to the channel, welcome. I'm so glad you found us. And to everyone who keeps coming back, thank you for your incredible support. It means more than you know. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. And if you enjoyed today's conversation, share it with someone who might need to hear it too. Now, let's get started. I want to ask you something, and I want you to be honest with yourself. No one is listening except you. This is your private, personal moment. Have you ever had a dream, something you really, truly wanted, and then talked yourself out of it before you even tried? Have you ever looked at an opportunity, a job, a relationship, a new skill, a new beginning, and felt a voice in your head say, "Who do you think you are? You are not good enough for that." Have you ever seen someone else succeed at something and thought, "I wish I could do that," but then quickly followed it with, "But I can't. I'm not like them. I don't have what they have"? If you answered yes to any of those questions, even just a quiet, hesitant yes, then I want you to know something very important. You are not alone, not even close. And there is a name for that invisible force that holds us back, that steals our courage, that whispers lies in our ears every single day. That force has a name. It is called self-doubt. And today, we are going to talk about it. We are going to look it directly in the face. We are going to understand it, dismantle it, and most importantly, we are going to learn how to rise above it, step by step, together. Because here is what I know after years of studying human psychology, personal growth, and the stories of people who went from broken to brilliant, from defeated to determined, from stuck to soaring. Self-doubt is not your truth. It is not your destiny. It is a story that was written a long time ago, usually by people, experiences, and circumstances that had nothing to do with who you truly are. And today, we are going to start writing a new story. Your story. The true one. Are you ready? Let's go. What is self-doubt? All right, let's start at the very beginning. Because before we can fight something, we need to understand it. Before we can overcome something, we need to see it clearly. So let's ask the most basic, most important question first. What exactly is self-doubt? In the simplest possible terms, self-doubt is when you do not trust yourself. It is when you look at your own abilities, your own potential, your own value, and you question all of it. You feel uncertain. You feel hesitant. You feel like you are not quite sure if you are capable of doing what you want to do, or being who you want to be. Now, here is something very important for you to understand. A little bit of doubt, a healthy small amount of self-questioning, is actually normal. In fact, a tiny dose of doubt is part of being a thoughtful, careful human being. When you are about to make a big decision, it makes sense to pause and think, "Wait, am I ready for this? Have I prepared enough?" Is this the right time? That kind of reflection is healthy. That kind of self-awareness is smart. But that is not what we are talking about today. What we are talking about today is a different kind of doubt. The kind that doesn't just pause you, it paralyzes you. The kind that doesn't just make you think carefully, it makes you think constantly, obsessively, in circles, without ever arriving at a positive conclusion. The kind that does not help you make better decisions. It stops you from making any decision at all. That is self-doubt in its toxic, destructive form. And that is what quietly poisons the lives of millions and millions of people every single day. So what does self-doubt actually feel like? Let's paint a picture. Let's make this real. You wake up in the morning and you think about the presentation you have to give at work today. And instead of preparing confidently, your mind starts running. What if I forget my words? What if they laugh at me? What if I make a mistake? What if they think I'm not intelligent? What if I embarrass myself? And so you go into that room already defeated, already apologizing in your mind before you have even opened your mouth. Or maybe you want to start learning English. Seriously, this time, for real. And you think, I'm going to sign up for a class. I'm going to start practicing every day. And then the doubt creeps in. But what if my accent is too strong? What if I'm too old to learn a new language? What if people laugh at my mistakes? What if I'm just not smart enough? And so the books stay on the shelf. The app stays undownloaded. The class stays unregistered. Another year passes. Another dream stays locked inside. Sound familiar? Self-doubt creates fear, and fear creates hesitation, and hesitation creates inaction, and inaction creates stagnation, and stagnation creates frustration, and frustration creates more doubt. It is a cycle, a painful, exhausting, soul-crushing cycle, and once you are inside it, it feels almost impossible to break free. But here's the truth that I want you to hold on to today, even if everything else we discuss fades from your memory. Self-doubt is a feeling. It is not a fact. It is a story your brain tells you, not the truth about who you are or what you are capable of. And stories, unlike facts, can be changed. Let me say that one more time, because it deserves to live in your heart. Self-doubt is a feeling, not a fact. A story, not the truth. And stories can be changed. Now let's talk about why self-doubt is so dangerous, because understanding the damage it causes is what motivates us to take it seriously enough to actually do something about it. Why self-doubt is so dangerous. I want to tell you something that might sound dramatic, but I believe it with every fiber of my being. I believe that self-doubt is one of the most dangerous forces in a human life. Not war, not poverty, not illness, self-doubt. Because all of those external challenges, as terrible as they are, come from outside of you. They attack you from the outside world. You can fight them, resist them, work against them. But self-doubt? Self-doubt lives inside you. It uses your own voice. It speaks in your own language. It knows all your fears, all your insecurities, all your secrets, and it uses them against you from the inside every single day. That is why it is so dangerous. Because you cannot run from it. You cannot escape it. Wherever you go, it goes with you. And because it lives inside us, because it feels so personal, so familiar, we often don't even recognize it as the enemy. We mistake it for realism. We mistake it for wisdom. We think we are being sensible, being careful, being smart, when actually we are being imprisoned. Let me show you what self-doubt actually does to a human life. Let's look at the real costs. First, self-doubt stops your growth. Think about a tree. A tree grows because it keeps reaching for the light. It does not ask permission. It does not doubt whether it deserves to grow. It just grows, because that is its nature. Human beings are the same. We are wired for growth. We are built to expand, to learn, to evolve. But when self-doubt takes hold, we stop reaching. We stop stretching. We stay small. We stay safe. And slowly, without even realizing it, we stop growing. And a life without growth is a life that quietly dies inside, even while the body is still walking around. Second, self-doubt kills dreams. I have met so many people, beautiful, intelligent, talented, creative people, who have buried their dreams alive. Not because the dreams were impossible, not because the world told them they couldn't, but because they told themselves they couldn't. They talked themselves out of their own greatness. They convinced themselves, that dream isn't for someone like me. And so the dream died, quietly, without a funeral, without anyone noticing. Just a slow fade from possibility to regret. That is what self-doubt does to your dreams. Third, self-doubt creates anxiety. When you do not trust yourself, when you are constantly second-guessing every thought and every decision, when you spend your days asking, what if I fail? What if I'm wrong? What if I make a mistake? Your nervous system lives in a constant state of alarm. You feel anxious. You feel stressed. You feel like you are always on the edge of something terrible. You cannot rest. You cannot be present. You cannot enjoy the good moments because you are too busy dreading the bad ones. And that anxiety, that constant, grinding, exhausting anxiety, slowly wears you down. It steals your health, your peace, your joy. Fourth, self-doubt reduces opportunities. Success in life comes to those who step forward, who raise their hand, who send the application, who start the conversation, who take the leap. But when you are full of self-doubt, you don't step forward. You step back. You stay quiet. You don't send the application. You don't start the conversation. You don't take the leap. And so the opportunities, the ones that could have changed your life, go to someone else. Not because you weren't qualified, not because you weren't ready, but because you didn't believe you were. Most people do not fail because they cannot succeed. Most people fail because they stop believing they can succeed. The failure happens in the mind long before it happens in real life. The defeat is decided before the battle even begins. Think about that for a moment. Think about all the battles that have already been lost inside your mind before you even showed up to fight. Think about all the things you never tried, never started, never pursued. Not because you truly couldn't do them, but because you believed you couldn't. Think about all the versions of yourself that never got to exist because self-doubt kept them locked away. That's a heavy thought. I know, but I want you to sit with it, because that weight, that feeling of loss, is the fuel we need to change. Let it motivate you. Let it make you angry in a productive way. Let it make you say, no more. Not one more day is going to pass where I let self-doubt steal from me. Because you deserve better than that. You always have. You always will. Now, before we can fix self-doubt, we need to understand where it comes from. Because when you understand the root of a problem, you have a much better chance of pulling it out completely. Where self-doubt comes from. One of the most important things I want you to understand today One of the most liberating, most healing, most powerful realizations you can have is this. You were not born with self-doubt. You were not born doubting yourself. Think about a small child, a 1-year-old, a 2-year-old. Watch them move through the world. They fall down and they get up. They fail and they try again. They don't know how to walk. They practice. They can't say a word. They babble and stumble and try different sounds until they figure it out. They are not afraid of looking silly. They are not afraid of failing. They are not comparing themselves to other babies and deciding they are inferior. They just live fully, boldly, without shame, without doubt. Self-doubt is not natural. Self-doubt is learned. It is taught to us. It is installed in us, usually by people, experiences, and environments that should have built us up, but instead broke us down. So where does self-doubt come from? Let's trace it back to its roots. The first source, and this one is very, very common, is childhood criticism. Many of us grew up hearing messages that, whether intentional or not, taught us that we were not enough. Maybe it was a parent who had high expectations and a harsh way of expressing them. Every time you brought home a grade, instead of celebrating your effort, they pointed to the one wrong answer. Every time you tried something new, instead of encouraging you, they warned you about all the ways you might fail. Maybe it was a teacher who made you feel stupid in front of the whole class. Maybe it was a sibling who constantly compared you to themselves or to others. Maybe it was relatives at family gatherings who made jokes about your weight, your intelligence, your choices. Children are not born with armor. When we are young, we are completely open, completely vulnerable. And the messages we receive in those early years carve themselves deeply into our understanding of who we are. They become the foundation of our self-image. And if that foundation is built on criticism, on comparison, on "you are not good enough," then self-doubt becomes part of the very structure of how we see ourselves. The second source is past failures. Now, here is the complicated truth. Failure is a natural, necessary, healthy part of life. Every human being who has ever achieved anything great has failed many, many times on the way there. Failure is the school. It is how we learn. It is how we grow. But when we experience failure without the right support, without the right perspective, without someone to help us understand that failure is not a verdict on our worth, failure can destroy us. It can make us decide, I tried once, and I failed. That means I am a failure. That means I should never try again. And so a single painful experience becomes a life sentence. The third source is negative people. The people around you matter enormously. I cannot stress this enough. The energy, the words, the beliefs of the people you spend your time with seep into you. They become part of your internal landscape. And if you are surrounded by people who are always negative, always pessimistic, always ready with a reason why something won't work, always quick to point out your flaws and your failures, over time you start to absorb that negativity. You start to see yourself through their eyes, and their doubt of you becomes your doubt of yourself. The fourth source, and this one is enormous in the modern world, is comparison with others. We live in the age of social media. We live in a world where everyone's highlight reel is constantly on display. You wake up in the morning and you scroll through your phone and you see your friends' perfect vacation photos. You see your colleague's promotion announcement. You see that person from school who seems to have the perfect body, the perfect career, the perfect relationship. And what does your brain do? Your brain compares. It says, look at them. Look at how successful they are. Look at how beautiful they are. Look at how easy it all seems for them. And then look at me, struggling, failing, still not where I want to be. And that comparison kills confidence. Every single time. The fifth source is fear of rejection. Human beings are social creatures. We are wired for belonging. We need connection. We need acceptance. We need to feel like we are part of a community, part of a group, part of something bigger than ourselves. And because that need is so deep and so fundamental, the fear of rejection, the fear of being cast out, being laughed at, being dismissed, is one of the most powerful fears in human psychology. And self-doubt is very often fear of rejection in disguise. When you think, what if people judge me? That is the fear of rejection talking. When you think, I shouldn't speak up because I might say the wrong thing, that is the fear of rejection talking. When you silence yourself, make yourself smaller, hold yourself back, very often it is the fear of rejection driving the car. So now you know where self-doubt comes from. It comes from the past, from old wounds, from other people's voices that we accidentally adopted as our own, from experiences that taught us the wrong lessons, from a world that constantly asks us to compare ourselves, and almost always makes us feel like we're losing the comparison. And here is the key insight, the thing I want you to really hold on to. Ready? Self-doubt usually comes from the past, not from the present, not from the future, from the past. It is a collection of old stories, old criticisms, old failures, old fears, all being replayed in your head as if they are current reality. But they are not. They are memories. And memories are not prophecies. Your past does not determine your future, unless you let it. The hidden cost of self-doubt. Let's go deeper now. Let's get really honest about what self-doubt is actually costing you. Because until you feel the full weight of what you are losing, it is very hard to find the motivation to change. I want to talk about what self-doubt steals. It steals your opportunities. Think about the opportunities that have passed through your life. The chances, the doors that opened briefly and then closed. The job you didn't apply for because you thought you weren't qualified enough. The class you didn't take because you thought you were too old to start. The conversation you didn't have because you were afraid of what the other person might think. Every one of those missed opportunities was a chapter in a story that was never written. A version of your life that could have existed but didn't. Because self-doubt told you not to reach for it. And opportunities, once missed, rarely come back in exactly the same form. Time moves forward. The moment passes. And what's left is the quiet ache of regret. It steals your peace of mind. When you are full of self-doubt, you cannot rest. Your mind is always working, always analyzing, always second-guessing, always running through worst-case scenarios. Did I say the wrong thing? Do they think badly of me? Did I make the right decision? What if things go wrong? That mental noise is exhausting. It keeps you from being present in the moments that matter. It keeps you from truly enjoying the good things in your life because you're too busy worrying about losing them. Self-doubt robs you of the ability to simply be, to be present, to be peaceful, to be okay with where you are right now. It steals your courage. Courage is not the absence of fear. We will talk about this more in a moment, but courage is the willingness to act in spite of fear. And self-doubt, when it is strong enough, suffocates courage. It makes the voice of fear louder than the voice of possibility. It makes staying still feel safer than moving forward. And over time, as you choose safety over courage again and again, the courage muscle gets weaker and weaker, until you can barely remember what it felt like to take a risk, to try something new, to step boldly into the unknown. It steals your happiness. This one is perhaps the most painful of all. Because happiness, true, deep, sustainable happiness, comes from living in alignment with who you really are, from pursuing what genuinely matters to you, from growing and contributing and connecting. And self-doubt blocks all of that. It blocks you from being who you really are because you are too afraid of how that person will be received. It blocks you from pursuing what matters because you don't believe you deserve it. It blocks growth because growth requires risk. It blocks contribution because you don't believe you have anything worth offering. And when all of those rivers of happiness are dammed up, life begins to feel gray, flat, meaningless. It steals your growth. We already talked about this, but I want to come back to it here because it deserves to be felt in this context. Human beings are designed for growth. It is not just something we do. It is something we need. When we are not growing, we are not just standing still. We are slowly dying inside. The unlived life, the unfulfilled potential, the dreams that were never pursued, they don't just disappear. They become a weight that you carry, a heaviness in your chest, a quiet voice in the back of your mind that says, "You could have been more. You should have tried." That voice is the cost of self-doubt. That is what it steals from you. And then there's the biggest theft of all, the one that breaks my heart the most. The biggest loss is not failure. The biggest loss is never trying. Let me say that one more time, because it is worth repeating. The biggest loss is not failure. The biggest loss is never trying. Because failure is survivable. Failure is a teacher. Failure is an event, not an identity. You can fail 100 times and still go on to build a magnificent life. History is filled with people who failed spectacularly and then came back and changed the world. Failure is not the end. But never trying? That is a different kind of loss. That is a loss that leaves no data, no lessons, no experience. It is a pure subtraction. It takes away without giving anything back. And the regret that comes from never trying, that what if, that haunts you at 3 o'clock in the morning, that is the heaviest thing a human being can carry. So I am asking you, I am genuinely, earnestly, sincerely asking you, what are you not trying right now because of self-doubt? What have you been putting off? What dream have you been dismissing? What opportunity have you been avoiding? What step forward have you been refusing to take? Keep that in mind as we move forward. Because in just a few minutes, I am going to give you the practical tools to start changing all of that. But first, I want to talk about confidence, because I think most of us have a very wrong idea of what confidence actually is. The truth about confidence. Let's clear something up right now, because this misunderstanding is one of the main reasons people give up on building confidence before they ever really start. Most people think that confident people don't feel afraid. Most people think that confident people never doubt themselves. Most people think that confidence means you have everything figured out, that you always know exactly what to do, that you never feel nervous, that failure is just not in your vocabulary. And because that picture of confidence seems so impossible, so unreachable, so fundamentally unlike anything they have ever experienced, They decide, I just wasn't born with confidence. It's not something I have. It's not something I can build. It's just not me. That is one of the most damaging lies that our culture tells us. And today, I want to dismantle it completely. Here is the truth. The real truth. The truth backed by psychology, by neuroscience, by the lived experiences of every genuinely confident person who has ever existed. Pause. Confidence is not about being fearless. Confident people feel afraid. They feel nervous. They doubt themselves. They have bad days. They have moments of insecurity. They have times when they want to give up, when they wonder if they are good enough, when the voice of self-doubt whispers its familiar poison in their ears. The difference, the only difference, is what they do with that fear. Confident people act in spite of their fear. They feel the doubt, and they move forward anyway. They hear the voice that says, "What if you fail?" And they answer, "Then I'll learn something." They feel the nervousness in their stomach before the presentation, and they walk up to the podium anyway. They feel the uncertainty before they start the business, and they send the email anyway. They feel the vulnerability before they say, "I love you," and they say it anyway. Confidence is not perfection. Confidence is not invincibility. Confidence is not the absence of fear or doubt or vulnerability. Confidence is the decision to trust yourself enough to try, even when you are not sure, even when you are scared, even when you might fail. That is all it is. That is the whole secret. And here is why this is so profoundly liberating. If confidence were something you were born with or not, if it were a fixed trait like eye color or height, then you would either have it or you wouldn't. And if you didn't have it, there would be nothing you could do. You would simply be someone without confidence, forever, end of story. But confidence is not a fixed trait. It is a skill. It is a practice. It is something that is built, slowly, imperfectly, one small act of courage at a time. Just like a muscle. You don't go to the gym once and come out strong. You go again and again. You struggle. You sweat. You sometimes fail. And slowly, over time, you become stronger. The muscle grows. The capacity increases. Confidence works exactly the same way. Every time you do something despite the fear, every time you try something despite the doubt, every time you act when every part of you wants to retreat, you are building the confidence muscle. You are training your brain to understand that you are capable, that you can handle discomfort, that fear is not fatal, that you are more resilient than you think. And now, let's get to the part you've been waiting for. The practical part. The part where we actually learn what to do. Here are the 5 most powerful steps to breaking free from self-doubt and building a confidence that nothing can shake. Step 1. Stop negative self-talk. Step 1, and I cannot overstate how important this is to stop negative self-talk. Let me ask you something. If you had a best friend, someone you love deeply, someone you respect, someone who is going through a hard time and needs your support, would you say to them, "You're not good enough. You always fail. You're too weak. You're not smart enough"? Why would anyone want to listen to you? You're going to embarrass yourself. You're going to make a mistake. You're just not the kind of person who succeeds. Of course not. That would be cruel. That would be abusive. You would never speak to someone you love that way. So why do you speak to yourself that way? For so many people, the inner voice, the constant running commentary inside their own mind, is the cruelest voice they will ever hear. It says things to them that they would never say to another living soul. It calls them names. It predicts failure. It replays every embarrassing moment. It catalogs every mistake. It builds cases for why they are not worthy, not capable, not enough. And here is the terrible, powerful truth. Your brain believes what you tell it. Your mind does not always know the difference between what is real and what is imagined, between what is true and what is merely repeated loudly and often. When you tell yourself, "I can't do this," over and over again, your brain files that away as a fact. It starts filtering your experience through that belief. It starts finding evidence to support it. It starts making decisions based on it. It actually begins to shape the reality you experience. Negative self-talk is not just unpleasant. It is neurologically harmful. It literally rewires your brain in ways that make self-doubt stronger and confidence weaker. So the first step, the foundational step, is to start catching those thoughts. Start noticing when the negative voice appears. Give it attention, not to agree with it, but to examine it, to question it, to say, "Wait a moment, is that actually true? Is that a fact? Or is that fear talking?" Here are some of the most common negative self-talk patterns and what to replace them with. When you hear, "I can't do this," replace it with, "I am learning how to do this." That one simple shift changes everything. "I can't" is a closed door. It says, "I have tried, and I have failed, and there is nothing more to be done." "I am learning" is an open door. It says, "I am not there yet, but I am moving toward it. I am in the process. Progress is happening." When you hear, "I'm too weak," replace it with, "I am building my strength." When you hear, "I always fail," replace it with, "I have failed before, and I have also learned, and I will keep going." When you hear, "I'm not smart enough," replace it with, "I am intelligent in ways I am still discovering." When you hear, "What if I make a mistake?" replace it with, "If I make a mistake, I will use it to grow." When you hear, "Nobody wants to hear what I have to say," replace it with, "My voice, my perspective, my experience matters." Now, I am not talking about toxic positivity. I am not asking you to plaster a fake smile on your face and pretend everything is perfect when it isn't. I am not asking you to deny your real emotions or push your genuine concerns aside. What I am asking you to do is to stop being your own worst enemy. To start speaking to yourself with the same kindness, the same patience, the same encouragement that you would offer to someone you deeply love. To start treating your own mind like a garden, pulling out the weeds of negative self-talk and planting seeds of a more truthful, more compassionate, more empowering narrative. Your words shape your mind. Your thoughts shape your actions. Your actions shape your life. It all starts with the conversation you have with yourself, inside your own head, every single minute of every single day. Choose those words carefully. They matter more than you know. Step 2. Stop comparing yourself to others. Step 2 is one that is absolutely critical in the world we live in today. And that step is to stop comparing yourself to others. I want to tell you something that I truly believe is one of the most destructive habits a human being can have. And it is something that almost all of us do, almost every single day, without even realizing how much damage it is causing. We compare ourselves. We compare our beginnings to other people's middles. We compare our behind-the-scenes to other people's highlight reels. We compare our doubts to other people's confidence, our struggles to other people's successes, our private failures to other people's public victories. And it is a comparison that we can never, ever win, because it is fundamentally unfair. It is comparing apples to oranges, and then concluding that the apple is inferior because it is not more like an orange. Think about what we compare. We compare success, but we don't see the 10 years of hard work, the 20 failed attempts, the sacrifices and struggles that no one posted about. We compare looks, but we don't see the filters, the perfect lighting, the hours of editing, the deep insecurities that the beautiful photo was designed to hide. We compare skills, but we don't see the thousands of hours of practice, the embarrassing early mistakes, the long road from beginner to expert. We compare money, but we don't see the debt, the stress, the relationships sacrificed. We compare progress, but we don't account for the completely different starting points, the different resources, the different circumstances, the different timing. Comparison is the thief of joy. That is not just a nice-sounding quote. That is a psychological truth. Study after study has shown that the more we compare ourselves to others, especially on social media, the worse we feel about ourselves. The more anxious we become, the less confident, the less satisfied, the less motivated. And here is the great, beautiful, liberating irony. The people you are comparing yourself to are comparing themselves to other people too. The person whose career you envy is secretly comparing herself to someone else, wishing she was further along. The person whose confidence you admire is internally comparing himself to someone more successful, someone more talented, someone who seems to have it all figured out. Everyone is running a comparison game, and everyone is losing. So what is the alternative? The alternative is to compare yourself only to who you were yesterday. That is the only comparison that makes sense, the only one that is fair, the only one that can actually motivate you without destroying you. Because the question is not, am I doing better than them? The question is, am I doing better than I was? Am I a little closer to my goal than I was last month? Have I learned something I didn't know before? Have I grown even a little from where I started? If the answer is yes, even a small, tentative, uncertain yes, then you are succeeding, fully, completely, by the only standard that actually matters. Your journey is yours. It is not like anyone else's because you are not like anyone else. Your path has a different starting point, a different terrain, a different destination. The pace that is right for you is not the pace that is right for someone else. The timeline that is right for your growth is not their timeline. Your story is not their story. And here is what I want you to really hear, deep in your heart. Your story is not less than theirs. It is not inferior. It is not smaller or less valid or less worth celebrating. It is different, and different is not lesser. Stop measuring your worth on someone else's ruler. Put down the measuring stick of comparison and pick up the compass of your own purpose. Because your life's direction should be determined by what matters to you, what you value, what you are called to become, not by whether you are keeping up with someone else's pace. Let them run their race. Run yours, and run it with everything you have. Step 3. Build confidence through small wins. Step 3 is where we get very, very practical. And this is one of my absolute favorite strategies because it is simple, it is available to everyone right now, and it works. Step 3 is to build confidence through small wins. Here is something that most people completely misunderstand about confidence. They think confidence comes first, and then action follows. They are waiting to feel confident before they try. They are waiting until they are sure, until they are ready, until the doubt goes away, and then they will take the leap. But that is not how it works. It is completely backward. Action comes first. Confidence follows. You do not wait until you feel brave to act bravely. You act bravely, and the feeling of bravery follows the action. You do not wait until you feel confident to try something. You try something, anything, and the confidence begins to grow from the experience of trying. Think of confidence like a fire. You do not start a fire with a massive log. You start with tiny sparks, then small pieces of kindling, then slightly larger sticks, and then, slowly, carefully, gradually, the bigger pieces of wood catch, and you have a real, roaring, sustainable flame. Small winds are the sparks. They are the kindling. They are the beginning of the fire. What counts as a small win? Anything that moves you forward, even slightly. Anything that proves to your brain that you are capable of more than you thought. Anything that lets you keep the promise you made to yourself. Finishing a task you started. Not a big, impressive task. Just a task. Making a phone call you were nervous about. Sending an email you kept putting off. Waking up at the time you planned to wake up. Going for a walk when you said you would. Practicing your English for 15 minutes. Cooking a new recipe. Saying hello to a stranger. Sharing an idea in a meeting. Raising your hand when you usually stay silent. These things sound small. They are small. That is exactly the point. Because here is what happens in your brain when you achieve a small win. Your brain releases dopamine, a powerful neurochemical associated with reward and motivation. It reinforces the behavior. It tells your brain, "That felt good. That worked. Do it again." And it begins to rewrite the internal story from, "I am someone who fails and gives up," to, "I am someone who keeps their word. I am someone who follows through. I am someone who does what I say I will do." And that is the foundation of genuine self-confidence. Not arrogance, not ego, not bravado, but the quiet, solid, unshakable knowledge that you can trust yourself, that when you commit to something, you follow through, that when you decide to do something, you actually do it, that your word to yourself is reliable. The bigger wins come from the accumulation of smaller ones. The marathon runner starts with their first kilometer. The concert pianist starts with their first simple scale. The fluent English speaker starts with their first imperfect, stumbling sentence. Nothing great is built all at once. Everything great is built one small, consistent, courageous step at a time. So I want to ask you, what is one small step you could take today? Not tomorrow, not next week. Today. What is one tiny, manageable, achievable thing that you have been putting off? One thing that, if you did it, would give you a small, genuine, real sense of accomplishment. Write it down. Commit to it. Do it today. And then notice how it feels. Notice the small but real spark of, "I did that. I said I would, and I did." That spark, hold on to it. Because that spark is the beginning of a fire. Step 4. Accept failure as a teacher. Step 4 is a radical shift in perspective, and for some of you, it might be the most challenging one, but it might also be the most transformative. Step 4 is to accept failure as a teacher. I want to talk about failure for a few minutes, Because our relationship with failure determines so much about our relationship with confidence, with risk, with growth, with everything we want to achieve in life. Most of us are terrified of failure, not just uncomfortable with it, terrified. We have been taught from a very young age that failure is bad, that failure means something is wrong with us, that failure is shameful, embarrassing, something to be hidden, something to be apologized for. We have been taught to see failure as the opposite of success, as the opposite of being good enough. And because we are so afraid of failure, we do something very logical but very destructive. We stop trying things where failure is a possibility. We only attempt what we are already confident we can achieve. We stay in our comfort zone, that small, safe, familiar territory where failure is unlikely because we have done everything many times before. But here is the devastating problem with that strategy. The comfort zone and the growth zone are mutually exclusive. You cannot grow and stay comfortable at the same time. Every worthwhile thing you have ever learned, every skill you have ever developed, every meaningful goal you have ever achieved, it happened outside your comfort zone. It happened in the territory of uncertainty, where failure was possible, where you had to stretch beyond what was familiar and safe. So when you choose the comfort of avoiding failure, you simultaneously choose to stop growing. You choose to stay exactly as you are, forever, in exchange for the temporary relief of never feeling the sting of failure. And that is a terrible trade, because the pain of stagnation, the deep, chronic, bone-level pain of never becoming who you could be, is so much worse than the sharp, temporary pain of failure. Now let's talk about what failure actually is. What it really means, not what we've been taught to believe. Failure is data. It is information. It is feedback. When you try something and it doesn't work, that is not a sign that you are hopeless. It is a signal telling you, this approach didn't work. Try a different one. It is literally your environment giving you information about how to do better next time. Think about how scientists work. A scientist runs an experiment. The experiment fails. The hypothesis was wrong. The results were not what they expected. Does the scientist conclude, I am terrible at science. I should give up and never do this again? Of course not. The scientist concludes, interesting. That hypothesis was incorrect. Now I know something I didn't know before. Let me adjust and try again. That is the correct relationship with failure. Scientific, curious, engaged, learning-oriented. What did I discover? What does this tell me? What can I do differently? Think about every person you admire, every leader, every creator, every innovator, every artist, every entrepreneur, every athlete, every inventor who has ever done something that impressed you. I can guarantee you, I will stake everything on this, that they have failed. Dramatically, repeatedly, spectacularly. Thomas Edison famously failed thousands of times before successfully creating the light bulb. When asked about it, he said he had not failed. He had simply found thousands of ways that didn't work. Walt Disney was fired from a newspaper early in his career for lacking imagination and having no good ideas. Oprah Winfrey was told early in her television career that she was unfit for TV. J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter manuscript was rejected by 12 publishers before anyone said yes. Michael Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team. These are not just inspirational stories for motivational posters. These are literal, documented histories of people who became legendary precisely because they refused to let failure be the final word. because they treated failure as a teacher rather than a judge, because they got up one more time than they got knocked down. And you can do the same thing. The next time you fail, and you will fail, because you are a living, growing, trying human being, I want you to ask yourself 3 questions. What did I learn from this? What would I do differently next time? And what does this failure prove about my potential for growth? Not about my worth. Not about your identity. Not about whether you deserve success. Just, what did I learn? And how can I use that to do better? Failure is not the opposite of success. Failure is part of the path to success. It is not the end of the story. It is a chapter. Often, it is the most important chapter. Step 5. Keep promises to yourself. Step 5 is one that most people never hear about in conversations about confidence, but I believe it might be the most important step of all. And that step is to keep the promises you make to yourself. Think about this for a moment. Think about how you feel about a person in your life who is consistently unreliable. Someone who says they will do things and then doesn't. Someone who makes commitments and then breaks them. Someone whose word you have learned, through painful experience, simply cannot be trusted. How do you feel about that person? Pause. You probably don't feel great about them. You might love them, but you don't fully trust them. You can't rely on them. And because of that, your relationship with them is fundamentally limited. Now, here is the uncomfortable question I need you to sit with. Are you that person to yourself? How many times have you said to yourself, I'm going to start exercising tomorrow, and then didn't? How many times have you committed, I'm going to study English for 30 minutes every day, and then let it slide after 3 days? How many times have you promised, I'm going to eat better, sleep more, spend less time on social media, be more patient, work harder on my goals, and then broken that promise before the week was out? Every time you make a promise to yourself and break it, something quiet but significant happens inside you. Your brain registers it. Your unconscious mind notes it. And the message it receives is, I cannot trust myself. When I say I'll do something, I probably won't. My commitments don't mean much. I don't follow through. And that is self-doubt at its deepest level. Not just doubt about your abilities, but doubt about your own reliability. Doubt about whether you are someone who keeps their word, even to yourself. Now, here is the flip side. And this is where the magic lives. Every time you make a promise to yourself and keep it, no matter how small, no matter how simple, you are building something. You are building self-trust. You are building integrity with yourself. You are sending your brain a very different message. When I say I'll do something, I do it. I am reliable. I can count on myself. My word means something. And self-trust is the very foundation of confidence. It is what makes confidence real and lasting, rather than fragile and performative. You can tell yourself positive affirmations all day long, but if deep down you don't trust yourself to follow through, if deep down you know that your commitments are more aspirational than actual, confidence will always feel hollow. It will always be a mask rather than an identity. So how do we build self-trust? We start small, mercifully small. We set ourselves up for success rather than failure. We make commitments that are achievable, concrete, and specific. And then we keep them. Not, I'm going to exercise more, but I'm going to walk for 15 minutes after dinner tonight. Not, I'm going to study English every day. But I'm going to practice English for 20 minutes every morning before I check my phone. Not, I'm going to be more productive. But I'm going to work on this project for 30 uninterrupted minutes after lunch today. Specific, small, achievable, and then non-negotiable. Because the keeping is what matters. The keeping of the promise, even a tiny promise, is a vote for the kind of person you are deciding to become. Every time you wake up when you said you would, every time you finish the task you started, every time you show up for yourself when you said you would, you are building a new internal identity. You are becoming someone who can be counted on, especially by yourself. And from that foundation of self-trust, from the deeply felt knowledge that you are someone who keeps their promises, everything else becomes possible. Because confidence is not just believing you can do something. It is believing that you will actually do it, that you will stay the course, that you will be there for yourself, through the discomfort, through the setbacks, through the days when it is hard and you don't feel like it. Keep your promises to yourself. Start small. Start today. And let every kept promise be a brick in the foundation of the unshakable confidence you are building. How to build unshakable confidence daily. Now that we have walked through the 5 core steps for breaking free from self-doubt, I want to talk about daily habits. Because everything we have discussed is wonderful as a concept, but concepts only change lives when they are turned into consistent, daily practice. Here is a truth about confidence that I want you to carry with you always. Confidence is not an event. It is a practice. It is not something that happens to you on a special day, or arrives after a single breakthrough, or clicks into place all at once. It is built, deliberately, patiently, imperfectly, through the daily choices you make about how you speak to yourself, how you treat your body, how you spend your time, what you read and watch and listen to, and how consistently you show up for the life you want to build. Let's talk about the habits that compound into confidence over time. The first habit is positive self-talk, and we have already covered this in depth, but I want to re-emphasize it as a daily practice. This is not something you do once when you are feeling low and then forget about. This is something you practice every morning when you wake up. It is the lens through which you see your day before it has even begun. Develop a morning ritual, however brief, where you deliberately, intentionally speak kindly to yourself, where you remind yourself of your strengths, your progress, your worth. Even if you don't fully believe it yet, especially if you don't fully believe it yet, because the belief follows the practice, not the other way around. The second habit is exercise. I know. You may have heard this 100 times, but please hear it again, because the evidence is overwhelming, and the importance cannot be overstated. Exercise is not just about your body. It is about your brain. Physical movement, even gentle, moderate movement like walking, releases chemicals in the brain that reduce anxiety, improve mood, increase energy, and sharpen thinking. People who exercise regularly consistently report higher self-esteem and greater confidence, not because their body looks a certain way, but because movement is a form of keeping the promise to yourself. It is a form of saying, I value myself enough to take care of this body and this mind. Start wherever you are. Walk for 10 minutes. Stretch for 5. Do whatever you can. And do it consistently. The third habit is learning. Confidence grows when competence grows. One of the most direct, reliable, undeniable ways to feel more confident is to know more. To have a skill, a knowledge, a capability that you did not have before. Read. Listen to podcasts like this one. Take courses. Practice your English. Study something that interests you. Curiosity is an antidote to self-doubt, because when you are genuinely engaged in learning, you are not stuck in the paralysis of self-judgment. You are in the forward momentum of growth. Every new thing you learn is proof that you are capable of learning. And that proof matters more than you think. The fourth habit is discipline. Not the harsh, punishing kind of discipline. Not white-knuckling your way through life by sheer willpower, but the gentle, consistent discipline of showing up, of doing the small, necessary things even on the days when you don't feel like it, of honoring the commitments you made to yourself even when it would be easier to break them. Discipline is, at its core, a form of self-respect. It is the practice of saying, "What I want to build matters enough for me to show up for it, even on the hard days." And there is nothing in the world that builds confidence faster than realizing that you have the discipline to do what you set out to do. The fifth habit is gratitude. This one sounds soft, but the science behind it is absolutely concrete. Practicing gratitude, deliberately, regularly, specifically noticing and appreciating the good things in your life, rewires your brain toward positivity. It counteracts the negativity bias that evolution has built into all of us. The tendency to focus on what is wrong, what is missing, what is threatening. A gratitude practice doesn't mean ignoring the difficulties. It means making sure that the good things in your life receive at least equal attention. And when you regularly focus on what is good, on what is working, on what you have rather than what you lack, your entire emotional landscape begins to shift. You start to feel less like a victim of circumstances and more like someone who has genuine reasons to feel okay. And from that baseline of okay, confidence has room to grow. The sixth habit, and perhaps the most important of all, is taking action. Not thinking about action, not planning action, not imagining action, actual, real, in-the-world action. Every single day, take at least one small step toward what matters to you. Send the email. Make the call. Write the paragraph. Do the practice session. Have the conversation. Show up for the thing you said you would show up for. Because confidence is not built in the mind. It is built in the doing. It is the accumulated experience of showing up, trying, struggling, adjusting, and trying again. That experience, that body of evidence that you are someone who acts, who tries, who shows up, is what eventually becomes the unshakable foundation of genuine confidence. Confidence is built daily, through small choices, through quiet disciplines, through the daily practice of showing up for your own life, even when it is hard, even when you are unsure, even when the voice of doubt is loud. Day by day, one small act at a time, you are building something real, something lasting, something no one can take away from you, because it is built from the inside out, from the evidence of your own lived experience, from the proof of your own willingness to try. Final encouraging message. We are near the end of our time together today, and I want to speak to you from the heart for a few minutes. I want to give you the final message, the one I want you to carry with you when you close this podcast and step back into your day. I know that for some of you, the things we talked about today are not new information. You know that you have self-doubt. You know that comparison is harmful. You know that failure is a teacher, not a verdict. You know all of this intellectually. But knowledge and action are different things. And the gap between knowing and doing is where most lives are lived, in the frustrating space of understanding what needs to change, but not yet making the change. So I want to say this to you. Be patient with yourself. Be genuinely, deeply, tenderly patient with yourself. You have been carrying this self-doubt for a long time. You did not build these patterns in a day, and you will not dismantle them in a day. This is a process. It is a journey. It is a slow, imperfect, non-linear, completely worthwhile journey from the version of you who believed the doubt to the version of you who moves forward in spite of it. And here is something I want you to remember on the days when the progress feels invisible, when the doubt feels louder than ever, when it seems like nothing is changing, and you wonder whether any of this is even worth trying. You do not need to become perfect. You never did. Perfection was never the goal, and it never will be, because perfection doesn't exist. Not in human beings, not in this life, not anywhere. The goal, the only goal that has ever mattered, is growth. The goal is to be a little more you, a little more whole, a little more free than you were yesterday. The goal is to keep moving forward, however slowly, however imperfectly, however many times you stumble and have to get back up. You do not need to become perfect. You only need to believe that growth is possible. And you know what? If you are listening to this right now, if you are here, actively learning, actively seeking, actively choosing to invest in your own growth instead of staying stuck, then you already believe it. Maybe only a little, maybe only a fragile, tentative, I hope this is true kind of believing. But it's there, and that is enough to start. That small belief, that tiny, stubborn, maybe I can do this, is the seed. And seeds grow, even in rocky soil, even in difficult conditions, even when the weather is against them and the odds don't seem favorable. Seeds grow, because it is in their nature to grow. And it is in yours. I believe in you. Not because I know your story, not because I have seen your abilities, not because I can predict your future. I believe in you because you are human, and the capacity for growth and change and reinvention is fundamentally, irreducibly, miraculously human. You were built for this, not for perfection, but for growth. Not for ease, but for resilience. Not for a life without struggle, but for a life where the struggle makes you stronger, wiser, more whole. Self-doubt can be defeated. I have seen it happen. I have experienced it in my own life. I have watched it happen in the lives of people who seemed so far into the darkness that they could not imagine ever finding the light again. And yet they did. Not by becoming fearless, not by becoming perfect, but by taking one small, courageous step after another, until the steps became a path, and the path became a life they were proud of. And you can do the same. You absolutely can. Confidence can be built. Growth takes time. Small steps matter. And every single step forward, no matter how small, no matter how shaky, no matter how imperfect, is a victory worth celebrating. So, celebrate them. Please. Do not wait until you have arrived at some imaginary destination of perfect confidence to acknowledge how far you have come. Celebrate the small wins. Celebrate the days when you got up and tried, even though you were scared. Celebrate the moments when you caught the negative self-talk and chose a kinder word. Celebrate the times you kept your promise to yourself, even though it was hard. Celebrate the failure you survived and the lesson it taught you. Celebrate the comparison trap you chose not to fall into today. Because those moments, those quiet, private, unglamorous moments of choosing growth over fear, are the real victories. They are the building blocks of a life that is genuinely, authentically, unshakably yours. You are not defined by your past. You are not defined by your fears. You are not defined by the voice of self-doubt, no matter how long it has been speaking, no matter how loud it has been. You are defined by your choices. And every day is a new chance to choose differently, to choose yourself, to choose growth, to choose forward. Make that choice today, and tomorrow, and the day after that. And keep making it, one day at a time, until the person you are becoming is someone you are genuinely proud to be. I am rooting for you, with everything I have. I am rooting for you. All right, my wonderful friend, we have covered so much ground today, and I am genuinely so grateful that you stayed with me through every moment of this conversation. Let me take just a moment to summarize the big ideas we explored together today, because repetition is how learning becomes lasting. We talked about self-doubt, what it is, how it feels, and why it is so much more common and more human than most people realize. We talked about why self-doubt is so dangerous, how it stops growth, kills dreams, creates anxiety, and steals opportunities. We traced self-doubt back to its roots: childhood criticism, past failures, negative people, comparison, and fear of rejection. And we remembered the liberating truth that self-doubt comes from the past, not from who we truly are right now. We felt the real cost of self-doubt, what it steals from our lives. And we reminded ourselves that the biggest loss is never failure, but never trying. We challenged the myth of confidence, and we understood that confident people are not fearless or perfect. They simply act in spite of their fear. And then we walked through 5 powerful, practical, immediately applicable steps: stopping negative self-talk, stopping the comparison trap, building confidence through small wins, accepting failure as a teacher, and keeping promises to yourself. And we talked about the daily habits: positive self-talk, exercise, learning, discipline, gratitude, and daily action, that compound over time into the unshakable confidence you deserve. That is a lot of powerful material. And if even one idea from today's episode lands in your heart and changes something for you, even something small, then this conversation was worth every moment. Now, here is my call to action for you, and I want you to take it seriously. Go right now, right after you finish listening to this episode, and subscribe to Code Your English. Hit the subscribe button. Turn on notifications, because every single week we bring you conversations just like this one. Powerful, honest, practical content that helps you grow both as an English speaker and as a human being. Share this episode with someone you love. Think of one person in your life, a friend, a family member, a colleague, someone you care about, who is struggling with self-doubt right now. Who needs to hear that they are not alone? Who needs to be reminded that confidence is not something you're born with, but something you build? Send them this episode. Just a simple message. Heard this today and thought of you. That one small act could change someone's day, maybe even their life. And if today's episode moved you, if it helped you, if it gave you something valuable. Please leave a comment or a review. Your words matter more than you know. They help other people find this community. They help us keep growing together. Because that is what Code Your English is about. It is not just about English. It is about becoming. It is about showing up, imperfectly and bravely, for the life you want to build. It is about finding your voice. In English, yes, but also in the world. It is about knowing that your words, your thoughts, your story, your presence, all of it matters. All of you matters. I want to leave you with this. Keep learning. Because every new thing you discover is proof of your capacity to grow. Keep growing. Because the version of you that exists in 6 months, in a year, in 5 years, if you stay committed to this path, will be someone you can barely imagine right now. Keep believing in yourself, not with perfect, unwavering certainty, but with the quiet, daily choice to say, I may not be there yet, but I am going, I am moving, I am becoming. That is enough. That has always been enough. That will always be enough. Thank you. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. It is genuinely one of my greatest joys to be able to have these conversations with you, to know that somewhere in the world you are listening, you are reflecting, you are growing. I am proud of you for showing up today. I am proud of you for choosing growth. I am proud of you for being exactly who you are, in exactly this moment, on this journey that is entirely, beautifully, powerfully yours. Until next time, this is Code Your English. Keep learning. Keep growing. Keep believing in yourself. I will see you in the next episode. Take care of yourself. And remember, you are so much more capable than you think you are. Goodbye for now, and thank you.